Salvete omnes. This is Gai Iuli Caesaris Commentarii de Bello Gallico Liber Primus, Chapter 45. And Caesar writes, Multa a Caesare in eam sententiam dicta sunt, quare negotio desistere non posset. Multa. So just like Ariovistus, he responded pauca, yet he praedicavit multa. He replied a little bit, pauca, a few things to Caesar's demands, but he praedicavit, boasted multa, much, many things. Same thing here. Multa is accusative plural neuter of multa saum. Many things. We can translate it using the adverbial much. A Caesare, ab plus the ablative shows separation or personal agent. We are either moving away from Caesar or a passive voice verb is being done by Caesar. And Caesare is the ablative of Caesar, Caesaris masculine. Ya boy. In plus the accusative shows motion towards, into, or onto. In eam is id, ea is the feminine, agrees with sententiam, sententia I feminine. A sentence, it is a thought. It's what you have, it's what you feel, it's what you realize. It's a thought, a sentence. Here it's eam sententiam, in that same vein, in the following thought. So it refers to multa, many things, dicta sunt, were said in the same thought, in the same vein. Dicta sunt from dico, dicere, dixi, dictus, to speak or say. Dicta agrees with multa, and sunt with, it's a helping verb, present tense of sum. This is the perfect passive. Third person plural, perfect passive. Many things were said, a Caesare, by Caesar, in eam sententiam, in the same vein, in the following way. In what following way? Quare, picked up quare, by which, it's just qua and re, you can translate as because. It's often written as this singular word, quare. Sometimes it's written as two words, quare. It's referring back to the eam sententiam. Many things were said by Caesar in the following way, by which, because of which, negotio desistere. Negotio from negotium e neuter. It is the negative, neg, of otium e neuter. Otium meaning leisure. The negative, neg otium, is not leisure. So work, task. It can also mean trouble. The opposite of leisure, of relaxation, trouble, business. Negotio, negotiations. Desistere, it's de and sisto sistere, to stand apart from. This is the second principal part, so the present active infinitive. Desisto, desistere, destiti, destitus. To leave off, to cease or to stop, to desist, stand off from. Non posset. Non, the adverb, negates. Posset, third person plural, imperfect active, subjunctive of possum, posse, potui, to be able to. By which, quare, by which, non posset, he, Caesar, was not able to desistere, to leave off from. You can see the de there, taking this ablative negotio, ablative separation, off of negotiations. The business, the task at hand, what they're doing right now, this parlay. Multa, many things were said by Caesar in the following way, by which he was not able to leave off negotiations. So he said things in the following manner, in eam sententiam, in the following way. As to quare, as to why, because for which reason he was not able to leave off negotiations, to cease negotiations, to give up in the task at hand. Then we need a form of dico, dicere, dixi, dicta, some form of head verb, a verb of saying, speaking. It's implied here because we immediately jump into oratio obliqua, from here until the end, voluisset. So from here on out, lots of accusative subjects of indirect statements going with infinitives. Subordinate clauses have their verbs in the subjunctive with nominative subjects. Ain't it fun? So this is what Caesar said in response to Ariovistus's epic Oratio Obliqua in chapter 44. So many things were said by Caesar. Much was said by Caesar in the following way as to why he was not able to leave off from negotiations. Neque suam, neque populi Romani consuetudinem pati, ut optime meritos socios desereret, neque se judicare Galliam potius esse Ariovisti, quam populi Romani. Neque, neque, this coordinate with this neque, neither nor, neither this thing nor this thing. Remember, we're working with accusatives as the subjects of our indirect statement. So suam from suus aum, the su part refers back to the subject, so that'll be his own. Is going to agree with some sort of accusative singular feminine. Nor populi Romani, so this is going to be the genitive singular of the Roman people, and then consuetudinem, from consuetudo, consuetudinis feminine. It means custom, practice, what you are accustomed to do. Remember, it is the custom of the immortal gods, consuese deos immortales, consuesco, what you're accustomed to do. This is the noun form. Consuetudino is what you're, like your daily practice, your custom. Neque suam consuetudinem, neque consuetudinem populi Romani. The suam goes with the consuetudinem. This is the subject of our indirect statement. It's the accusative. It was neither suam consuetudinem, his own, Caesar's own. The reflexive refers to the speaker of the main introductory verb. So, Caesar. It was neither his own, Caesar's custom, practice. Caesar's not accustomed to doing this, nor the custom, the practice of the Roman people to pati or pati, passus sum, to allow, to suffer, to endure. It was neither the custom of Caesar nor of the Roman people to pati, to endure. Present infinitive is a deponent verb, so it looks passive. Please translate as active. Ut, with the result that, to endure, to suffer, with the result that, to suffer that, optime meritos socios desereret, that he would desereret, third person singular imperfect active subjunctive of desero, deserere, to desert, to abandon. Optime is the superlative adverb of bonus. Bonus being the adjective, bonus aum, good. Its adverb form is bene. Its comparative form would be melius, better. It would be or bene as well. Melius is better, and optime is very good, the best. You did the best. You did very well. So optime as an adverb modifies meritos here, which is a participle. Remember, participles, verbals, they can be modified by adverbs. Meritos, and it means to be merited, from meritus aum, merior. And then it agrees with socios, from socios, soci, masculine, allies. The subject here, because we're in this adverbial result clause, it is not his custom with the result that he desert abandon his optime meritos socios, his allies who are optime meritos, his very well-deserved allies, his allies who have deserved so well. Optime, his most well-deserved allies. This is not Caesar's custom or the custom of the Roman people to endure that they desert, they abandon their very well-deserved allies. Their allies who have deserved so well-deserving allies. Neque nor. Remember, you don't often see et non, if ever. So here we have neque, either neck or neque. It's not really coordinate with another one. Nor had he neque, say. Say here is going to be referring back to the subject of the head verb, the verb that introduces the indirect statement, that implied form of dico. The subject, of course, is Caesar, like the suam refers to, the su part refers to Caesar. Se refers to Caesar. So Caesar is the subject here. Accusative subject of the indirect statement. Nor was he judicare, judging. And remember, it's a present active infinitive, so it's showing an action which is contemporaneous to the main introductory imaginary head verb. Isn't that nice? So present active infinitive, he was judging, nor was he judging. And he was not judging. He did not judge that an indirect statement inside of an indirect statement. He was not judging. This judicare kicks us into a new indirect statement, a new noun clause, substantive clause, telling us what he did not judge. What did he not judge? That Galliam potius esse ariovisti quam populi Romani. That Gaul, remember, accusative subject, Gallium, potius, you can see it's the comparative, it's actually the comparative of potus, which is the adjective form of possum, which is able. This is abler, more able. It's usually translated as rather. Gallium is Gaul esse. Remember, we're inside oratio obliqua. We have infinitives for our main verbs. In oratio recta, this would be est. Gaul is rather, he did not judge that Gaul is rather ariovisti of ariovistus, genitive. We could even say belonging to ariovistus. Potius quam, here's a comparative, here's a quam to go with it, belongs to ariovistus rather than instead of populi Romani, the Roman people. Nor was Caesar judging, nor did Caesar judge that Gaul is ariovistus's rather than the Roman people's, that Gaul is the property of ariovistus rather than the property of the Roman people. You supply property. You can say belongs to ariovistus rather than to the Roman people. Ariovisti and populi Romani are genitives of possession. They are possessing Galliam, the subject. So Caesar is balking at the idea of Ariovistus saying that this is his Gaul. Excuse me. No, we have owned Gaul for quite some time before you even crossed the Rhine. At which point the Gauls are like, excuse me, when did this happen? We still live here. Bello superatos esse arvernos et rutennos, quinto Fabio Maximo, quibus populus Romanos ignovisset, neque in provinciam redegisset, neque stipendium possuisset. Yeah. So after saying that It was neither his own nor the Roman people's practice to endure that their allies who have merited so well, that he abandon allies who have deserved so well. I'd put a semicolon there. Nor did he judge that Gaul belonged to Ariovistus rather than to the Roman people. And then he's going to give his explanation as to why he would judge that. Bello in war. Bello mean neuter. Warfare. War. Probably going to be ablative. Superatos esse, from supero, superare, superavi, superatus, to overcome, defeat, surpass. Superatos, that's accusative, plural, masculine. Perfect passive infinitive. So inside this oratio obliqua, indirect statement, stands in for a perfect passive. It's your perfect passive infinitive. It's your main verb. Arvernos. Arvernos, accusative, plural, masculine, subject of indirect statement. Et rutenos, also. So the Arverni and the Ruteni, Gallic tribes, they, before Caesar was saying this stuff to Ariovistus, had been defeated, had been overcome, surpassed. Perfect passive infinitive, it happened to them, also because it's perfect, it's prior to the introductory main head verb, which is imaginary and not there. It's implied. Bello, ablative of means. In warfare, bello, the Arverni and the Ruteni had been conquered. The Arverni and the Ruteni had been conquered in war. By whom? A plus the ablative shows either separation or personal agent with a passive voice verb. And here we have a person. Quintus Fabius Maximus. Yes, he conquered the Arverni and the Ruteni in 121 BC. My. Quite a time before Ariovistus crossed the Rhine. So quibus refers to, because it's plural and could be any gender, can't refer to Quintus Fabius Maximus, who is singular. It refers to the Arverni et Rutenos, the Arverni and Ruteni. The Arverni and Ruteni are the antecedent of quibus. Quibus can either be dative or ablative plural. Populus Romanus is the nominative subject of ignoviset. So quibus, being a relative pronoun, kicks us into a relative clause. Antecedent of which, the Arvernos et Rutenos, the Arverni and the Ruteni. So they are the dative object of ignoviset. The subject of ignoviset is the populus Romanus. The Roman people had ignoviset, ignosco, ignoscere, ignovi, ignotus. Means to, it looks like ignore. It means to excuse, to pardon, and it takes a dative. It just does. It's an intransitive verb in Latin, just takes a dative, means to pardon. So that's the object quibus. Quibus, referring to the Arverni and the Ruteni, would normally be accusative if this verb were transitive and took an accusative direct object. As it takes a dative, this is the dative object. The Arverni and the Ruteni, whom the Roman people had pardoned. Beat them in warfare, then pardon them. Neque, then it's picked up by this other neque. Neither, we could just say and not, it's just adding on to what he said before. Nor in provinciam, in plus the accusative motion towards, into a province, redegiset. It's a compound of red and ago. You can't have re and ago like that because it's, two vowels, re and ago. So you put a D in between to get redago. Redago, redigere, so it's redigo, redigere, redegi, redactus. You probably know the English word to redact. This is to draw back, to move back in some way, or to minimize, to reduce to a lower level. So he had not the Roman people, subject of ignoviset, and also the subject of redegiset, the Roman people had not reduced them, the Arverni and the Ruteni, to the level of province, to a vassal state. So Caesar's saying that we already beat these Gauls. Like, you're saying, you Ariovistus, think you're so big and bad because you crossed the Rhine. Here you are, beating up Gauls. And you're like, yeah, I beat these people. They now owe me stipendium. They now owe me obsides. They now owe me possessiones. So give me the tribute, give me the hostages, give me the settlements, give me the real estate and the holdings. Caesar's rolling along saying, like, excuse me, we conquered these people like 60 years ago. What are you doing, man? You can't just come along and conquer the people we've already conquered. Who do you think you are? The Arverni and the Ruteni had already been conquered in war by Quintus Fabius Maximus, of course, whom the Roman people, the Arverni and the Ruteni, whom the Roman people had pardoned, and they had not reduced to the level of province. Neque nor had they stipendium posuiset, nor had they stipendium attribute posuiset, pono, ponere, posui, positus, imposed, placed, set, nor had they set a tribute, imposed a tribute, made them pay a tribute. Notice the pluperfect tenses of the subjunctive here to indicate a prior action to our imaginary introductory head verb, which would be a past tense. Secondary sequence, which explains all the subordinate, imperfect, and pluperfect subjunctives. Quod si antiquisimum, quodque tempus spectare apporteret, populi Romani justissimum esse in Gallia imperium. Duh, of course. Quod si, usually written as one word, but if. Antiquisimum. Antiquissimus from antiquus, of a former time. Like, think antique. It's of an older time, a former time. Long, long ago. Antiquissimum is the superlative form. So, the most ancient, the oldest, the back in the way, way before time. And antiquissimum is going to be either, masculine, accusative, singular, or it's going to be neuter, nominative, or accusative singular. It's an adjective, so something is quite old. Quodque. Now, you're used to seeing que meaning and, the enclitic que meaning and. Be careful, because sometimes que attached to a word gives it a sense of each and everything. So quodque is each thing. If each antiquissimum tempus temporis neuter, but if, one T, but if if each most ancient, most antique, most former time, tempus, because antiquissimum neuter to agree with the neuter tempus. Quodque, quod, also neuter. When you decline quodque, the que stays the way that it is. It does not change. You decline the quod part. So it becomes cuiusque, cuique, quodque, quoque. Spectari, present passive infinitive of specta, spectare, spectavi, spectatus, to be looked at. But if each most ancient time, we could even say point in time, spectare apporteret. Remember, apportet, apportere, apportuit, impersonal verb, the subject is always it. If it is necessary for an accusative, each most ancient point in time to be looked at, if we really must, excuse me, if we really must take apart each most ancient point in time, well then, populi Romani justissimum esse in Gallia imperium. Populi Romani, genitive, justissimum, superlative of justus just, proper, right, fair. Justissimum is going to be neuter to agree with imperium. Imperium, imperi, neuter. Esse, linking verb. Infinitive in oratio obliqua stands in for an est in oratio recta. In plus the accusative would show motion towards, into, or onto, but in plus the ablative, like right here with that macron that you can clearly see right there, that shows location. So most just is in Gaul the imperium. Most just is the imperium in Gaul. The imperium of what? Most just is the imperium, the power of the Roman people in Gaul. But if it is necessary for each most ancient point in time to be looked at, if we were to stop and look at the history of Gallia, of Gaul, to say who was here first conquering and beating up Gauls, who has primacy of place when it comes to conquering these people and this country. If you were to look at that, if we really must do that, then you will see that the power of the Roman people in Gaul is the most just. You will see that justissimum, most just, most proper. You can see the root is jus juris, lawful. Ariovistus was talking about the jus belli, the law of war. Well, Caesar is talking about what is jus, just. Most just is the power of the Roman people in Gaul. It's not the power of the Gauls in Gaul, it's the power of the Roman people in Gaul, Caesar says. Si judicium senatus observariar porteret, liberam debere esse Galliam, quam bello victam suis legibus uti voluisset. Ah, yes, pretty words. I wonder if they're true. See if the judicium, the jus dico, the law statement, or we could just say the decision, the decree, if the just decision, if the judgment, we could say, senatus, genitive singular masculine of senatus os masculine, the Senate. There's a macron over that U. Squint really hard, you can see it. If the judgment of the Senate observaria porteret, present passive infinitive of observo observari, is to be observed with a porteret, third person singular, always impersonal, this apportet, apportere, apportuit, like apporteret up here. If it is necessary for, accusative, each most ancient point in time to be looked at, blah, 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 blah. If it is necessary for the judgment of the Senate to be observed, then what? Liberam, free, liber, libera, liberum, free, accusative, singular, feminine, debere, from debeo, debere, debui, debitus. Debere here, this is usually translated o. Here it means ought because it takes a complementary infinitive in esse. Something ought to be liberam. Wait for it. Galliam. You hear that, Gauls? Caesar says you should be free. Caesar's going to fight for you to be free. Caesar's going to fight you. What? So, Galliam. Gallia, I, feminine. Man, there's no reason for books 2 through 8 of the Gallic Wars anymore, everyone. The Gallic Wars are over before they kind of even really start at the end of book 1. Gaul's going to be free. Tell it on the Alps. Tell it at the Atlantic. Go tell Germany. Go tell Britannia. Go tell all of Italia. Gaul, Gallium, ought to be free. Free ought to be Gallium. Gallium, accusative subject to the indirect statement. Ought, debere, right now, present tense, present time, or contemporaneous to what Caesar is saying. Gaul ought to be free. Quam refers to Gallium, accusative, singular, feminine. It's going to be the accusative direct object of its own clause, introduced by the relative pronoun quam. The verb should be subjunctive because we're still inside the oratio obliqua. Bello, ablative singular neuter, a bellum e neuter. Weakdom, this is somewhat in comparison to bello superatos esse, but instead of drawing this out into an infinitive, like superatos esse, it's just a participle. Weakdom agrees with quam, which refers to Gallium, which weakdom bello, winco, vincere, vici, victus, to conquer, defeat. Weakdom, having been defeated. What was defeated? The thing it agrees with, quam. What is the thing it agrees with? Quam, which thing? That's Gallia, refers to Gaul, which, having been defeated in warfare, suis legibus uti voluisset. Suis legibus, suis aon, refers back to legibus. So legibus here, lex, legis, feminine, laws, either dative or ablative plural. Uti, this is going to be the present infinitive, and it's a deponent verb. Utor, uti, usus sum, to use, to make use of. This verb always takes the ablative of means as its object, so it's an intransitive verb, and that explains suis legibus, to use or to make use of, suis legibus, their own laws, the laws of themselves. Ablative, object of uti, ablative of means. And voluisset, third person singular, pluperfect active subjunctive of volo, velle, volui, which the subject is actually the Senate, it, and it's kind of difficult to determine that. Really makes sense through context. If it is necessary for the judgment of the Senate to be observed, then Gaul ought to be free, which I would say, though weakdom conquered in war, the Senate wished it to uti make use of its own laws. Though the Gauls were conquered, weakdom, in warfare, the Senate had wished for weakdom, the conquered Gauls, the ones that conquered in warfare, to uti make use of their own laws. But if it is necessary that each most ancient point in time be looked at, then the power of the Roman people in Gaul is the most just. If it is necessary for the judgment of the Senate to be observed, then Gaul ought to be free. Gaul ought to be free because though it was conquered in warfare, the Senate had wished the Gauls to make use of their own laws, as in the Senate had wished the Gauls to be governed by their own laws. How nice for them. And that's the end of Caesar's statement to Ariovistus, the end of his oratio obliqua. Here's the oratio recta. So notice we keep the beginning the same because it's in the indicative, not oratio obliqua. So many things were said by Caesar along the same vein as to why he was not able to leave off from negotiations. And then we cast the rest of it with quotation marks as if it were what Caesar really actually said. So a lot of present tense, present times, a lot of reflexives become first-person singular personal pronouns. Neque mea inquit, neque populi Romane consuetudo patitor. Neither is it mea consuetudo, neither, he said, quoth he, is it my custom, nor is it the custom of the Roman people to endure that I would desert my very well-deserved allies. Nor do I judge that, and this stays indirect statement because it is an indirect statement introduced by Judico. Remember in the beginning it was, in oratio recta, it was neque se judicare, because inside oratio obliqua, this becomes a main verb infinitive. In oratio recta, this becomes just a finite verb. Nor ego judico, nor am I judging, nor do I judge that, introduces its own indirect statement. It stays indirect statement. Gaul belongs to Ariovistus rather than to the Roman people. The Arverni and the Ruteni were defeated, were overcome in warfare by Quintus Fabius Maximus, a people whom the Roman people pardoned. Nor did they reduce to the level of province, nor did they impose a tribute. And you can just leave it posuit if you want. Notice third person singular because the subject is populus Romanus, though I'm translating it as they, the Roman people, they had pardoned, they had not reduced to a level of province, they had not imposed a tribute. Keep in mind it is singular in the Latin because populus Romanus is singular. But if apportet becomes third person singular present, it is necessary for each most ancient point in time to be looked at, then the imperium, then the power of the Roman people in Gaul is most just. Esse becomes est. If apportet, finite verb, third person singular present, if it is necessary for the judgment of the Senate to be observed, then Gallia ought, Gallia nominative subject, subject of debet, ought esse to be libera, free, predicate nominative. Although weakdom conquered in war, because it's still got to be the direct object of volueret, the Senate wished it to make use of suis legibus, its own laws. Optime. Very well done. That concludes chapter 45 of Book 1 de Bello Gallico.